At first glance, 3I Atlas was nothing more than a speck of ice and rock wandering into our solar system from the endless dark between the stars. Officially, it was cataloged as the third known interstellar object ever detected, following the infamous Oumuamua and the comet Borisov. Astronomers described it as a visitor from another star system, a frozen relic drifting through space for millions of years before fate carried it into our neighborhood. According to the data, its trajectory was hyperbolic, meaning it was never bound to the sun. It would sweep in, slingshot around, and vanish back into the abyss. Just another comet. At least, that was the story the public was told. NASA's official briefings were calm and dismissive. They assured us that the object posed no threat, that its closest approach would keep it at a safe distance, and that its composition, dust, ice, and gases, was nothing unusual. To the untrained eye, the explanation was simple and reassuring. But beneath the surface of these statements, questions began to rise. Why were so many observatories suddenly reporting strange data, only to retract their findings days later? Why did several scientific journals reject papers that highlighted the unusual activity of 3I Atlas, labeling them speculative before the authors were forced into silence? Even within the scientific community, whispers grew louder. Experts who had studied Oumuamua remembered how it too behaved in ways that defied expectations, its strange acceleration, its unnatural shape. But 3I Atlas was different. This was not just another rock or comet drifting through space. Its emissions of gas were inconsistent, as though switching on and off at intervals. Its coma, instead of expanding smoothly, appeared to pulse in rhythm, like a signal being broadcast. And yet, despite mounting evidence, the official narrative never changed. A comet, nothing more. Harmless, they said. Ordinary, they claimed. But every night that 3I/Atlas grew brighter in the sky, amateur astronomers captured images that told a different story. Colors shifting unexpectedly. Jets of vapor streaming in patterns far too symmetrical to be natural. It was as if the object itself was trying to disguise its true nature, hiding behind the mask of a comet while preparing for something we cannot yet comprehend. The truth is, the official story may only be a carefully constructed cover, a blanket of calm to keep the public from asking dangerous questions. Because if 3I Atlas is not a comet at all, then what exactly is racing toward us from the void of interstellar space? It began with subtle irregularities that most astronomers dismissed as noise in the data. But as days turned into weeks, the so-called noise transformed into patterns too precise to ignore. 3I Atlas was behaving in ways that defied every known characteristic of a comet. Its brightness didn't simply increase as it drew closer to the sun. No, it fluctuated violently, pulsing in sequences, dimming and blazing like a cosmic beacon. These flashes were timed, not random, as though someone or something was deliberately switching a light on and off in the depths of space. Even more disturbing were the jets of gas erupting from its surface. Normally, comets release gas and dust when heated, spraying matter in chaotic streams. But 3I Atlas showed something else entirely. Its emissions formed structured outbursts, symmetrical arcs that repeated every few hours. Amateurs across the globe began to capture photos that looked nothing like the diffuse plumes of a natural comet. Instead, the jets resembled controlled exhaust, the kind of pattern one might expect from a propulsion system, not from frozen ice sublimating in the vacuum of space. Reports poured in from observatories. Sudden spectral shifts, unexpected emissions, variations inconsistent with standard cometary models. These phrases were quietly buried in technical notes, never making it into official announcements. One observatory in South America even claimed to have witnessed a burst of green plasma spiraling from the nucleus of 3I Atlas, a phenomenon that should be impossible. Days later, their statement was retracted, their data removed from public archives. what frightened scientists most was the object's uncanny ability to maintain a stable trajectory, despite its explosive activity. Normally, outgassing would nudge a comet off course, yet 3I Atlas remained steady, almost guided, as if under intelligent control. This isn't a natural drift, one anonymous researcher warned in a leaked audio recording. This is correction. Something is steering it. And then came the whispers that chilled even the skeptics. The anomalies weren't just physical, they carried the signature of intention, a pattern too deliberate to be coincidence, a rhythm too calculated to be dismissed. As the world watched the strange visitor brighten in our skies, one question began to spread like wildfire through both the scientific community and the public. Are we truly looking at a comet? Or are we witnessing the first signs of contact with an intelligence far beyond our own? The breakthrough came on a cold night in late September, when a team of researchers at the European Deep Space Lab reported something that shook even the most skeptical scientists. Among them was Dr. Joseph Astonovich, a respected astrophysicist with decades of experience in deep space radio analysis. While monitoring 3I Atlas through a high-sensitivity antenna array in the Canary Islands, Astonovich detected a sequence of faint but unmistakable radio pulses coming directly from the object's coordinates. At first, his team believed it was interference, perhaps a satellite, perhaps background noise. But when they filtered the signal, a chilling pattern emerged. The pulses were repeating at precise intervals, not randomly scattered. More disturbingly, the repetition followed a sequence almost identical to a coded transmission. Long bursts, short bursts, then silence, then repetition. It wasn't a natural cosmic hum. It wasn't a star, a planet, or a cometary tail scattering particles. It was structured. Astonovich immediately contacted colleagues across Europe, and within hours, 3 separate observatories confirmed the anomaly. One in Italy, another in France, and a private research group in Finland all reported receiving the same signal, the same rhythm, the same eerie pulse from the direction of 3I Atlas. This is not noise, Astonovich declared in a closed-door briefing. This is communication. Yet no sooner had the findings spread through the scientific community than silence began to fall. NASA, when asked, offered no comment. The European Space Agency claimed it had no verified data regarding such signals. And yet, in encrypted channels, leaked fragments of recordings began to circulate. Those who heard them described a haunting, mechanical heartbeat echoing through the static of the cosmos, an artificial whisper carried across light years. Was it a beacon, announcing its presence to whoever might be listening? Was it a navigational signal, a kind of homing device guiding 3I Atlas along its mysterious trajectory? Or was it something darker, a warning, a countdown, or the prelude to activation? Dr. Astonovich himself reportedly grew uneasy. In a rare interview that was swiftly scrubbed from the internet, he admitted, "If these signals are what I think they are, then 3I Atlas is not just passing through. It's here for a purpose." And with that revelation, the world was forced to confront a terrifying new possibility: that our interstellar visitor was no longer silent. It was speaking, and the message was meant for us. The recordings obtained by Dr. Astonovich and his team were unlike anything the scientific community had ever seen. When the raw data was fed through spectrographic software, the pulses separated into a sequence that bore a striking resemblance to binary code, the foundation of all human computing. Long burst, short burst, silence. 0, 1, pause. Over and over again, cycling with machine-like precision. At first glance, it looked almost too simple, too primitive to be of extraterrestrial origin. And yet, the simplicity was exactly what made it terrifying. Binary is universal. It is the purest form of communication, understandable by any civilization that has ever discovered mathematics. If an intelligent species wished to ensure their message could be read by others, binary would be the language they would choose. Astonovich's assistant, Dr. Eliza Krell, was among the first to point this out. If this is real, she warned, then the signal isn't just random noise. It's designed. It's intentional. Attempts to decode the transmission revealed repeating clusters of digits, sequences that, when mapped onto a grid, formed geometric shapes, triangles, spirals, even a crude lattice resembling a hexagon. Astonovich suggested these could be cosmic coordinates, while others argued they might represent chemical structures or even blueprints of some unknown technology. More extreme voices whispered that the patterns looked eerily similar to propulsion schematics used in experimental spacecraft here on Earth. But the most unsettling discovery came when researchers overlaid the sequence onto human DNA encoding. By sheer coincidence, or perhaps not, the patterns aligned with segments of genetic information, as if the message were somehow referencing the building blocks of life itself. It's as if they're saying, "We know who you are, we understand your design," Krell said in a leaked audio recording. Skeptics, of course, rushed to dismiss the findings, claiming pareidolia, claiming overinterpretation. But the more the data was examined, the more undeniable the structure became. It wasn't random. It wasn't accidental. The signal carried intelligence, and worse, it carried intent. What if the transmission was not a greeting, but an instruction? What if hidden within the binary patterns lay commands, waiting to be executed once fully understood? Some analysts speculated it might be a countdown. Others believed it to be a key, unlocking something dormant within 3I Atlas itself. And as the world argued over possibilities, one thing became clear. The signal was no longer just an astronomical curiosity. It was a message written in the universal language of logic and life, and it demanded to be answered. The question haunting every mind was simple, yet chilling. Who sent it, and what happens when we finally understand it? Not long after the strange binary-like sequences were uncovered, silence fell from the very institutions that were supposed to keep the public informed. NASA, once quick to hold press conferences about even minor asteroid flybys, suddenly refused to answer questions about 3I Atlas. Journalists who inquired received carefully scripted responses. No comment, data under review, no unusual findings to report. Yet behind the curtain, something else was unfolding. Leaked documents began surfacing on obscure forums, allegedly from within NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory. One file, marked Eyes Only, Level 5, described repetitive electromagnetic signatures inconsistent with natural celestial sources. Another, more chilling, carried the note, "Do not release to the public. Potential sociological destabilization." The documents were quickly removed, accounts deleted, and whistleblowers silenced. But the damage was done. The world now knew that something was being hidden. Even more suspicious were reports from amateur astronomers. Multiple observatories around the globe claimed they were suddenly denied access to telescope time when requesting coordinates for 3I Atlas. One Chilean astronomer stated in a deleted post that a government representative showed up at his lab, warning him not to share his images online. Another, in Australia, admitted that his access to a satellite data feed was abruptly revoked after he noticed anomalous radio spikes that matched Astonovich's findings. And then came the most damning leak of all, a file, allegedly taken from an internal NASA server, circulated briefly before vanishing from the web. The document included a grainy spectrogram labeled Atlas Signal Fragment, Confirmed. At the bottom was a note in red letters, "Resembles intentional transmission, directive, suppress." Why would NASA bury evidence of such magnitude? Some argue it is fear of mass panic, a desperate attempt to prevent chaos if humanity learns we are being contacted. Others suggest darker motives, that perhaps certain agencies already know who sent the signal and what it means, and are preparing not to inform us, but to use it. Dr. Astanovich himself has reportedly gone into hiding. Colleagues say his lab was raided, his equipment confiscated, and his online presence scrubbed overnight. The man who first detected the signal has vanished, leaving only rumors and whispers in his wake. And so, the silence from official channels speaks louder than any announcement could. Something is happening. Something is being concealed. And if the most powerful space agencies on Earth are this afraid of the truth, then perhaps the truth is more terrifying than we could ever imagine. What if we have been wrong from the very beginning? What if 3I Atlas was never a comet at all, but something far more advanced, an object designed, constructed, and sent with purpose? More and more scientists, both real and those forced into the shadows, are beginning to suggest exactly that. The strange radio pulses, the symmetrical outbursts of gas, the steady trajectory unaffected by natural forces, all of it points to one chilling conclusion. We might be watching an alien machine disguised as a comet. Dr. Leonard Harker, a former aerospace engineer turned whistleblower, described 3I Atlas as a message capsule, an interstellar probe built to mimic the appearance of a natural object. If you wanted to travel undetected through hostile star systems, he explained in a suppressed interview, you wouldn't send a shiny metallic craft. You'd wrap your technology in ice and rock, let it look like a comet, and drift silently until the moment comes to reveal itself. His words, quickly erased from mainstream media, now survive only in underground archives. Others take this theory even further. They suggest that 3I Atlas could be a reconnaissance drone, an ancient probe launched millions of years ago by a civilization older than humanity itself. Its mission, to scan star systems, locate intelligent life, and transmit the results back to its creators. If that is true, then the binary code may not be for us at all, but for them. A status report, a signal that Earth has been found. And then there are those who whisper of something darker still. That 3I Atlas is not simply here to observe, but to act. A seed ship, carrying within it the potential to awaken, to release machines or life forms once it nears a star. Its silence until now may not have been disinterest, but dormancy. And as it approaches our sun, its systems could be activating. Of course, officials dismiss all of this as speculation, as science fiction. But the mounting anomalies tell a different story. Natural objects do not send coded transmissions. Natural comets do not pulse with precision. Natural trajectories do not hold steady against violent outbursts. So the question remains, is 3I Atlas a cosmic traveler or a constructed vessel? A messenger of peace or the harbinger of something far more dangerous? As each day passes and the mysterious object grows brighter in our sky, humanity edges closer to discovering the truth. And perhaps that truth is something we were never meant to know. Long before telescopes ever spotted 3I Atlas, ancient civilizations gazed at the skies and left behind warnings that now feel disturbingly relevant. The Mayans spoke of a fiery messenger that would cross the heavens, a harbinger of great change and upheaval. The Sumerians carved into clay tablets descriptions of a wandering star that was not truly a star at all, but a vessel carrying knowledge or destruction from beyond the known world. Even the prophecies of Nostradamus include cryptic lines about a foreign star with a tail of smoke that would ignite fear across nations. For centuries, these words were dismissed as myth, metaphor, or superstition. But with 3I Atlas cutting its path across our solar system, the parallels have become impossible to ignore. The pulsing light, the repeating signals, the unnatural behavior, all of it matches eerily with what the ancients described. Was it coincidence, or did they know something we have forgotten? One chilling detail comes from a text attributed to the Oracle of Delphi. When the stranger comes cloaked in fire, mankind shall hear its voice, but few will understand. That line, obscure for millennia, now reads like a direct reference to the radio pulses detected by Dr. Astanovich and his team. The Mayans, too, warned of cycles, eras of civilization that ended when a messenger star appeared. They believed it was not merely a comet, but a sign that the gods, or something far beyond gods, were taking measure of humanity. Some modern researchers even argue that such visitations could have inspired myths of divine beings descending from the heavens. What if these ancient cultures were not imagining? What if they had witnessed this very same object before, thousands of years ago, as it made a previous journey through our part of the galaxy? Interstellar objects travel for eons. It is not impossible that 3I Atlas has passed Earth before, leaving behind fragments of memory that became legend. And if that is true, then the message it carries is not random, it is deliberate. A cycle that repeats, a test humanity has faced before, and perhaps failed. The ancients left warnings, but they also left hope. They believed that if mankind could recognize the sign and prepare, survival was possible. Now, as 3I Atlas approaches, the question becomes unavoidable. Are we living in the very prophecy that our ancestors tried to warn us about? And if so, is the message of 3I Atlas one of salvation or annihilation? Day by day, 3I Atlas draws nearer, and with every mile it closes, the anomalies grow stronger. The pulses that once seemed faint now thunder across radio frequencies, more intense, more defined, as if the object is turning up its volume the closer it comes. Amateur radio operators around the world are beginning to pick them up, strange bursts that interrupt ordinary transmissions, ghostly patterns bleeding into civilian airwaves. It's no longer confined to deep space observatories. Now, anyone with the right equipment can hear the whispers of something alien. Astronomers have noted that as the object nears the inner solar system, its behavior becomes increasingly deliberate. Brightness fluctuations now follow a sequence that resembles a countdown, each cycle shorter than the last. The jets of gas, once mistaken for random outbursts, have begun to align with planetary positions, firing at precise intervals when Earth, Mars, or Jupiter fall into its line of sight. To call this coincidence would be willful blindness. It looks more like targeting or signaling. Governments around the world are quietly preparing for possibilities they refuse to acknowledge in public. Military satellites have been repositioned. Emergency communication networks are being tested in secret. Leaked memos from defense departments mention extraterrestrial contingency protocols, a phrase once reserved for science fiction. And yet the public is told nothing, fed only soothing reassurances that this is just another harmless visitor from space. But for those watching closely, the facade is cracking. Farmers in rural regions of South America report their radios going dead at night, replaced by rhythmic static that sounds eerily similar to a heartbeat. Pilots crossing the Pacific describe sudden blackouts in their instruments, always when flying in direct alignment with the object's path. Even seismologists have recorded unexplained tremors that match the timing of 3I Atlas's signal bursts, as though the Earth itself is responding to the frequency. If this is communication, then the climax is approaching. If it is activation, then the mechanism is already underway. And if it is something far darker, a weapon, a probe, a harbinger, then humanity is on the edge of its most terrifying moment. Every signal, every pulse, every flash in the night sky carries the same dreadful question. Is this contact, or is it the beginning of an invasion? Soon the answer will no longer be speculation. It will be reality, and the world may not be ready for what comes next. And now, as 3I Atlas speeds toward its closest approach, the world holds its breath. The signals that began as faint whispers have become thunderous, their structure undeniable, their intent impossible to ignore. Across continents, observatories report the same chilling conclusion. The transmission is building towards something, as if waiting for a precise cosmic alignment before unveiling its final message. The leaked fragments hint at completion, as though the pulses are only pieces of a greater whole, chapters of a story yet to be finished. It's like listening to a symphony, one anonymous scientist confessed. But the last movement hasn't played yet. When it does, everything will change. His words echo through shadowy corners of the internet, fueling speculation, fear, and hope all at once. Religious leaders warn their followers of impending judgment, claiming the fiery messenger fulfills ancient prophecy. Military strategists prepare for confrontation, crafting scenarios that sound less like defense and more like survival. Meanwhile, ordinary people look up at the night sky and see a star that was never there before, glowing brighter, pulsing with an eerie rhythm that feels almost alive. What is 3I Atlas truly? A probe? An arc? A warning beacon? Or a weapon disguised as stone and ice? Perhaps all of these at once, perhaps none. What we do know is this: it has been speaking to us, and its message is nearly complete. The binary streams, the geometric patterns, the coordinated flashes, they are converging toward a revelation that no one on Earth is ready to face. And when the day comes, when 3I Atlas sweeps past the sun and delivers its final transmission, we will hear it, we will understand, and we will have no choice but to confront what waits for us in the dark. The message is clear, but not yet fully decoded. Soon, very soon, the last piece will fall into place. And when it does, the question will no longer be, what is 3I Atlas? But rather, are we ready for